Hello. Sorry, we're an hour and 20 minutes late. And look, we are on the live stream, just so you know. Oh, I don't know how many viewers we have.
Yeah, we should be live. Is the little green dot on the top corner?
Which top corner?
I
Oh
tried.
yeah, in the top left.
Yeah. Does it say live?
It says live. Yeah.
Alright guys, so up next we have our SRC and Nominating Committee nominations. So as you guys may have heard prior, one of the bodies on the student government is the Stipend Review Committee, or SRC Committee. This body is in charge of basically going over the workloads that officers have done and then awarding them their stipends or cuts if they have not been doing their jobs. The Finance Board has 2 members who sit on that board, so we're going to open that up for nominations. Basically, would anyone like to fill this position of being on the SRC?
Can you bring up the guiding documents that talk about what this is?
Yes. I mean, turn you want to talk about that, but there's not a dead silence.
Oh yeah.
So Nominating Committee nominates members to the judicial branch of SGA, including election board and the appeals board.
Is it in our bylaws or our constitution?
I don't know, that's not asking.
I think it's in our constitution.
I believe the appeals board is unstipended, while election board has pretty good stipends, and those are all stipended positions. They work with candidates directly to run the elections. It's important that we have people to get interest in the elections and actually vote in the elections, as you all know. So it's a pretty essential job. They also, I think, review complaints in the elections.
Okay, so I guess this is a question maybe for Candace. Since elections are held next semester, what would they do? What would people for the judicial branch, the election board, do for like the fall?
So those two. So are you asking about election board or asking about
Election
judicial?
board, sorry.
Yeah. So the election board chair is the first person who's nominated by nominating committee because they actually have a seat on nominating committee.
Yes.
Yeah, they do.
Yes, and then that body finds people for election board, and that the election board has to be in place by November.
Yes.
Yeah, because they do work over December and January, and the application goes out in February, and then campaigning is in March, and then the election's in April. So there's not a lot for them to. They aren't fully aboard until November. So October and September is finding people. The nominee does that.
Alright. So on here in the bylaws of the SGA, which is section 1.4, the Stipend Review Committee, basically it says the purpose of the committee, which is a joint committee for the purposes of stipend review and allocation. The committee shall have the exclusive power to award stipends to officers eligible to receive a stipend based on their performance in their SGA position. And all stipends are subject to review by the SRC with the exception of the stipends allocated to the judicial branch, because, well, government. So voting membership is 2 representatives from the Senate, either senators or first-year ambassadors to the Senate, and 2 representatives of the Finance Board, either finance representatives or first-year ambassadors. Since we don't have any first-year ambassadors at this time, it'll just be members of the Finance Board. So there are 2 seats on there. One caveat of the Stipend Review Committee is that if you serve on it for a semester, you cannot serve on it for the subsequent semester. So if you served on it in the fall, you would not be able to again serve on this in the spring.
And Zay and I served on it in the spring, and I believe also Liam and Justin cannot be nominated to serve on SRC because their leadership.
Yes. Justin being elected, so the vice chair actually co-chairs this. So they can't be the finance board representative from it. And then Zane and Scott are members of the executive branch, so they would not be able to represent the finance board. Are there any other questions involving just the Stipend Review Committee? Alright. Would anyone like to serve? So the current duties, as I understand it, would be once you hear that there's an SRC meeting convened, you would be required to attend that meeting. And during that meeting, you would look over documentation provided by the representative or senator or member of the executive branch
also, so the dates, I don't know if they're released yet, but like, you only meet twice a semester because it's for each quarter. And so I think it's on like a Sunday or Saturday. And it's just like, I think usually they're from like 9 to 3, 9 to 4. And you're just like, I don't know how they're gonna do it this year. Previously, we've looked at like bi-weekly reports that people give, and you're just kind of judging based on like what those reports have said and then what other people that they might have worked with have said as well. So it's only like twice a semester commitment.
Are there other questions?
Has a date set for meetings?
The dates are not set.
There's dates that we have to do evaluation sessions
Yeah.
by, but we can have as many evaluating sessions as the chair see fit. So it's in the budgetary part of the guiding docs.
Yeah. So like the first meeting would have to be held probably before maybe like the second week in October or something, because it's based on when the stipends come out. So like sometime in October they're gonna meet, and then definitely sometime before break in December. So.
It's in the budgetary policy.
Alright. Do you want to note that now?
Oh, I mean, it's fine, but yeah, so we will decide like evaluative sessions, like, and again, the reform would allow us like maybe at least a week prior before like just calling one out of random and telling you guys like if we want to look at officer, like look at documents.
Are there any other questions at this time? Yes.
Can you serve on both the nominating committee and the SRC?
I believe you can. There's nothing saying that you cannot.
Yeah, I don't believe that there's a conflict. I think that it's preferable to spread the wealth of responsibility. I don't think that there's any guidance, official guidance around whether or not you can serve on both.
Nothing says you can't, but ideally you'd want to serve on one or the other.
Right.
Alright. We're gonna open it up to nominations, so would anyone at this time like to be a member of the SRC? Elise?
I'm a voluntary. Love this.
Anyone else?
That's it.
We get to see Kim.
Who wants to be on what committee? 'Cause I don't want to nominate you to the SRC. You want to be on nominating.
This semester, you left that to the minutes. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
The numbers show.
Who wants to work with Justin? Elsa?
I don't mind.
I'm interested in nominating committees, so. Nominate Muhammad?
Well.
Who wants to pay me? Come on.
So how many do you accept or deny this nomination?
Can we nominate him over his time?
For nominating committee, maybe, but I'm uncomfortable with forcing someone to serve on the SRC. Because that automatically creates a conflict of like, well, they maybe do this, cut this.
Is leadership really not allowed to sit? Pretty sure Dan.
Wait, what?
Daniel did not. Did Daniel serve on the SRC?
I'm pretty sure he did. Because last year we would have only had, well, we would have only had like 3 possible nominees if we only had like 7 reps. I don't think there's anything against leadership.
Oh, I think it's only the.
Yeah, I think it's only the vice chair that can.
Yeah.
Well, the president and the vice chair.
There's usually previous.
Assuming none of you guys want to step up.
You probably have to do it eventually because unless we have an FYA next semester.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so the thing about it is when it comes to SRC, if Elise and I do it this semester, we can't do it next semester. So one of you guys are gonna have to step up eventually. But if none of you guys really wanna do it, then I'll do SRC this semester. Alright, so that's done. Next up, nominating committee. So as you've heard prior, the nominating committee is a committee that's formed by the president, the executive vice president, along with 2 members of the Senate and 2 members of the finance board. They can be representatives or first-year ambassadors. And they serve as voting members of this committee. This committee committee brings forward nominations for the positions of the SGA Appeals Board, of which there are 2 SGA Appeals Board positions, election board chair and election board member. The amount of members can vary from year to year. So basically, the main job of this committee is that you bring forward these nominations. Typically, these positions aren't applied positions. You don't apply for them. You have to be nominated. So you are the committee that sits and does that. Once you nominate the election board chair, they will become a voting member of this committee only in terms of election board members. So the election board chair can vote on election board members, but they cannot then subsequently vote on members of the SGA Appeals Board. So, I'd like to nominate Michael to serve on the nominating committee. Woo! Would anyone else like to serve on the nominating committee?
Anybody else? You guys wanna?
Is it term length the same as SRC?
So,
They don't meet it.
nominating committee typically only meets for the first semester, because there aren't any nominations that typically need to happen second semester, because ideally the board would be done by then. But there aren't any restrictions. So if you serve on nominating committee first semester, you can serve on the second semester.
Did they do election board and appeals board, right?
Yeah, just election board and appeals board.
Appeals board is.
Alright, are there any other nominations at this time for nominating committee? There are no restrictions on leadership.
Oh, someone nominated.
Nominating committee? Oh.
This would be
Determined
at the discretion of the president.
So then they meet like
They have to meet before October
twice
1st for their
or
first
twice?
meeting. And then from there, you just have to be present at the meeting in which you vote. as they come. It's to the discretion of the situation. Do you accept it or not? Alright. Vicky and Michael, you will be our representatives to the nominating committee.
Yay, nominating committee.
Go nominate, go forward and nominate.
Alright, a finance board resolution. Hey guys, I hope you remember how to pass legislation resolutions, because we have one. This is our first resolution, finance board resolution FBR 01-1920, and I'd like to introduce it now as a finance board resolution to welcome the new advisor of the Student Government Association, Ms. Courtney Campbell.
Hey!
Whereas the Student Government Association recognizes the need for a full-time staff member to guide the SGA Finance Board and its members to be successful through advice and leadership. Therefore, let it be resolved that we, the 2019-2020 members of the SGA Finance Board of the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, welcome and entrust our fullest faith in our newest advisor, Ms. Courtney Campbell. And be it further resolved that Ms. Campbell should now assume all responsibilities associated with SGA Finance Board Advisor in conjunction with Ms. Candace Martinez-Jones and Ms. Tori Easley, specified by the organization's guiding documents. Is there a motion on the floor?
Move to approve FBR. Move to approve FBR 01-1920.
Alright, all in favor, please raise your hands now. All opposed? 8-4, 0 against, 1 abstaining, no absences, and the motion passes. Congratulations, you're now our advisor.
Yeah, now you get the like nameplate.
That you'll forget your desk every week, because that's where mine always is.
I hate this keyboard, but it has such a nice click. Alright. Now we're moving on to the final budget fixes. So, as you guys may have heard prior to Slack chat, there were some issues with the combination packages. Not everything was limited to 150, some got through the cracks. So we've convened here today to kind of fix those quick mistakes to kind of keep everything on the same level. So up first is the kleptomaniacs. So we approved that for the 250, but I'd like to move that we reduce the amount to 150 to keep in line with our other other funding that we've given to other organizations that were consistent across the board.
Am I allowed to speak?
Yes. So the chair recognizes the treasurer from the kleptomaniacs who would like to say something.
Hi, well, I'll just stay sitting. I'm the treasurer from the Kleptomaniacs, and I'd like to express my discontent that you are trying to amend this approved budget without even notifying our organization first. as we've already started to plan our financial year around this budget. A budget which was supposed to be delivered to us over the summer. And so it's already a late addition to this. Anyway, I decided to show up to this meeting on a whim. I just had, with how the budget issues were going, I just had a feeling that I should show up and make sure that our money was secured away, because I was even surprised that we got what we asked for. And lo and behold, you're planning on trying to decrease that amount. And even though this meeting has gone on for like far longer, posted in the minutes, that's okay. It's okay. I made sure my evening was free, but don't worry about that. I can definitely empathize with why you guys want to make all the clubs level and with the amount of money they get from Continuity Vision, and it's trying to simplify the treasurer budget process by making it through Excel spreadsheets and stuff. But I'm going to say that as a treasurer of a student organization, I feel really let down by the board here, by the lack of organization and how you keep on breaking promises to us. And I think that just for that reason alone, our budget should be remaining the same. But if you even need any more reason, what do you say, have you ever been to any of the Kleptos concerts? Have you? Okay, well, we get decent attendance, but we have a lot of guest appearances from groups from other campuses, so there's a lot of stuff we'd like to build with that. And it takes a lot to advertise the whole thing. And so clearly our past attempts, which we used with materials from Common Vision, were not enough, and so we decided we would pay a bit more for it and try to get that passed through. And we got this even at the recommendation of our president, who actually works at Common Vision and thought it would be a good idea. And then even Britt Spears approved of it. This could have stopped at her. But no, you let this thing slip through the cracks and settle on something that can't be fully funded. So I'm just saying, you really can't let these individual clubs down. And this is one promise that I hope you all don't break.
Thank you for your comments. So at this time, the question is on the floor for the changing from 250 down to 150. I'd like to move that we open into discussion on this matter. All right, all in favor, please raise your hands now. All opposed? The motion carries. So during discussion, finance group representatives will be able to talk to each other and be able to discuss. Unfortunately, you won't be able to comment during this time frame, as it's just for the members to discuss, but after we will open it back up to you if there's any misconception that you've heard that we had or any final thoughts you'd like to add in. All right. This is discussion. All right, so yeah.
So all clubs are going back down to 150, right? I'm just asking. Like all clubs are getting 150 for competition, right?
The purpose of this is to fund all clubs at 150 as the precedent that we set it. We were supposed to.
So in this case, I think a lot of cuts were made during our meeting at the RLC, where we were kind of going through and trying to finish everything since things were taking a lot longer than we thought. And once the kind of Tory told us that things were done, we just kind of pushed it through. Clearly that was a mistake. We definitely should have double checked things that we were going through, but that's on us. But the question still remains on, do we remain and keep that precedent here at 150, or do we let this club slide with their 250 that we've allocated to them?
We can't just let one club slide and let the others all who got theirs cut from 250 to 150 go. That wouldn't be fair to sliders. This isn't a singling out of any club. It's just what we're doing for everyone because it's the precedent we set.
Scott?
Is this the purpose of all legislation using today?
No. There is one situation where we gave a Common Vision cut because of that they are no longer at the max funding. That would be Russian Club. They requested $20,000 and we were only able to fund them at $4,950. But after we made the Common Vision cuts, we didn't account for the fact that they were no longer at their max funding, so we'd be adding $100 just elsewhere in the other cuts that we had to make to them. That way they maintain their level since we already gave them the Common Vision cuts. mistakes and any others that you guys have found, at least discussion going on there. Zane?
I think also, if I remember correctly, the reasoning behind it was that to give some money towards marketing, I think we looked at like packages that you could get for the 150, and in terms trying to, not necessarily saving money, but being able to put money towards other things. I think to try to fully fund like ECS fees so that events could continue. But yeah, I think I'd be in favor of just making sure that across the board the precedent is enacted equally. So.
I'm going to give Elsa and Scott.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly like the details, but I remember when we were discussing, we wanted to give the maximum amount of funding that we possibly could, and so we were playing around with the numbers and, like Zane said, like looking at the packages, and I think, like considering that there are packages that start, I don't know what the cheapest package was, but I know there were some clubs who were like requesting like $25, $50, whatever, but when a club requested more, we wanted to give them the most possible amount, and $150 was, it's on like it's almost max. So I think that the fact that we did it for all clubs, that we have to stick to our precedent, just because there were a lot of clubs that were cut, and also clubs all received their budgets at the same time.
Scott?
We should also, as Louise said, acknowledge our own failings and not adequately applying it and sending it out correctly the first time. I'd like to thank you for waiting and speaking to us, even though we went an hour and 20 minutes over the agenda. And I appreciate you being here at this meeting to speak your part on this budget. And it's important for us to realize that these budgets affect the organizations, and that we should speak like I don't know, more humanely. Like Louise is in the room, and we need to acknowledge that we messed up.
Michael, do you have anything you want to add? Louise? Mohammed?
I just wanted to second what Scott just said about being mindful of the fact that a lot of these concerns are expressed, and when it's a set an agenda, I mean, sometimes we go over the time that we have a lot for certain purposes, but maybe in the future we can also like maybe in order to shorten the waiting time for people who are representing clubs, maybe move them, fix the agenda for those who are able to speak earlier if they want to wait.
Cynthia, do you have anything you want to add?
I'm just wondering, also if you meant
The max package for one competition is three $200 packages and one $250 package. Anything below that would be funded at a la carte levels for billboard signage, banners, posters, and graphics. Alright, I'd like to move previous question and debate.
Second.
All in favor, please raise your hands now. All opposed? Motion carries. Alright, so we're gonna move into voting. So
Am I allowed to give
Yes.
my other
Sorry.
comments?
Apologies, yes.
So, I really didn't want to bring up how poorly planned the process of this Excel spreadsheet was, but I feel like that's something, number one, that I feel is important to talk about, because it's part of the thing. I'll give a bit more context as well. Just this past summer, I had to work through our last concert. We decided to get videography and photography services. This is something that our a cappella group probably lives or dies on, because that sort of helps get out our concert even to people, even whether they come or not. It's a free concert as well. But as it turns out, our previous treasurer, which probably wasn't trained very well either, he didn't pay those videographer and photographer. And so I spent the whole summer trying to work through the Byzantine and outdated form system, that all the recompensation forms and payment forms, and so they still haven't been paid. and I'm working that, and thankfully, well, one of them, the photographer, has finally been paid. But for our upcoming semester, I didn't see anywhere to request any such amounts, so I simply didn't put them down. But I'm wondering if it would be possible. And the amount, it was $200 for photography services and $300 for videography services. And I was wondering if it would be possible to add that as a request onto this budget.
So as far as adding it onto this budget this time, it's unfortunately something that we can't do.
Okay. But you just reallocated the other group, or you're about to reallocate some other groups to some other amount on the budget that I can't even do because it's not on this Excel spreadsheet.
So in their case, there's a $33 per head for events that happen on campus, so we can only fund $33 per head. So they got cut drastically because of that. But due to the additional cuts that we made, we didn't kind of fix the other part of the budget to add that in. Now in this situation, the reason why it's different is because in that case, we're not going to add it into a random column.'re going to take one of the columns that we cut and add the money in to there.
Well, we get about 100 people at our concert, and that we're not requesting $3,300 for
I'm aware of
events.
that, but this would be not only a request that would be to reallocate, to recompensate for somebody for an event that's not happening this semester. It'd also be adding on a new request to this current budget, which is something that we can't do. But what I can recommend is that you use our secondary ad hoc allocation system.
You've already approved the 250, so why not add at least that 100 to whatever other category then?
Because this would be funding for the Russian Club, because they're entitled to a certain amount of funding that we're going to give them. And in this case, for this club,
so you're putting another club over our club then?
no, because the funds would originally have gone to that club had it not been for our errors.
I think what he means is the 150 cut from this to allocate somewhere else in this budget, not like rush off us 100 or 100.
Yeah, in our budget,
Scott?
the money that's already allocated to us. Yeah.
Clarification question, is this funding the photographer and videographer that were not funded last semester?
No,
or
this-
trying to get one for this event?
It would be at least going towards that amount. If you're not willing to pay whatever amount, then I guess we can pay out of our carryover account again, but.
My apologies, Matt, I misunderstood your situation from earlier.
And just for clarification, my name's Candace, Assistant Director. Just for clarification, what you're talking about are outside contracts, correct?
Yes.
So there is a spot on this form for contracts.
Okay. It wasn't really explained very well, and so I went to the thing and the meeting that was also supposedly counts for treasurer training, but I think I'll probably go to that this semester just to make sure that my duties are well known at least with the SGA side, because I don't think they were properly clarified in that meeting.
So treasurer training is mandatory before requesting from the finance board again for the spring semester, and also we realized that these forms were not very good. We have updated our forms to use SurveyMonkey. SGA put some resources towards trying to make the forms easier to use, and you also have a finance board representative as a liaison to help you through the process in the future.
Okay. All right.
Alright, so there's a question on the floor as to whether or not to reallocate the 150 that would have gone to common mission to another section of the budget. Do you guys want to have discussion on that?
Or it would have been 100 because we have 250.
Yeah, 100 to the budget. So would you guys like to move into discussion on that, or would you simply like to vote?
I'd like to vote.
To vote? Alright, are there any objections? That was a strong vote. So we're going to move into voting. Your current options are to either cut the 150 or cut 100 from it so that it's a clear 150 and leave it at that, to reallocate that 100 towards, I'm assuming, the contract section for videography and photography, or to keep the current budget at 250. Scott, you have a
Motion for discussion.
Is a motion for discussion?
I second.
Seconded. All in favor? All opposed? All right, we're moving into discussion.
If you just wanna vote and do not wanna reallocate the money, I would just like to know why.
Say that again?
Why do you not wanna reallocate the money from?
So if there are other clubs who we've done this to, and they're not present to ask for us to reallocate that extra 100 that they got, how's that fair to them?
You can reallocate the,
You can submit a reallocation request for the event that you're.
I think what Justice saying is that we're just not kind of, they wouldn't have the option to reallocate that.
Yeah, I understand that, but it may feel that's a big money round for the contract, but.
I mean, there are other clubs who we gave 250 to, but then we had to cut it to 150. And that 100 just went away. We didn't give them the option of choosing where else they want to put it.
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying.
Which club?
There are other clubs that we asked them to give 250 to, or that had 250, and we just took it away to 150.
I feel that since we, I feel like that reallocating the $100 to contracts, since the form was confusing and we sent it out already with this amount, we should own up to our mistake by transferring that money to contracts as a special case.
And to your point, I definitely understand what it feels like for them to not get it, whereas Kleptomaniacs would. But I'd also like to point out the fact that Kleptomaniacs should. And unfortunately, this game is a lot of times, if they're here to argue their case, we listen to them, but the other clubs are here to argue their case. And it's wrong, but that's kind of the way it's been so far. And it's not something I'd like to continue, but I think this situation, we need to own up to our mistakes as constantly. Yeah, go ahead.
A point should also be made. We said that he was not notified that his club was on the docket. I think all the clubs that are on the docket should be notified with their time on the agenda and be able to speak their point.
Understood. Yeah.
So I guess just a question of if we're going to, like set this precedent of, reallocate the $100 to the contracts, if similar clubs and instances were to arise, we're gonna just keep that precedent then. So that's what we're opening up here for vote.
Like, will they have to attend, or do we just maybe decide like to give it in a place that we already had funding for?
Well, I mean, my point in general was that like once you open a precedent like this, you're going to now have a case where people are going to come back and be like, well, now we're allowed to do this. Which, I mean, the way we vote is, I mean, that would open that up.
Are you saying that this is opening up a new precedent?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, not technically in precedent, but if there's other clubs that are in the same situation or find themselves in the situation, they're going to look back to, they would be able to find this and be like, well, you should be in favor of reallocating this money to us or giving us this money because you've already decided to do this.
I think this is a unique case since this has already been approved, and I would consider this more as a reallocation request, moving into line with precedents rather than a special case where we're giving kleptomaniacs privileges.
And also theoretically, with the survey monkey, the way the data is compiled and handled, errors will not happen. And I'll make sure of that. Michael?
I would like to argue, as someone who's had to go and do a reallocation request, if there was a reallocation request, it would require the vote of the entire board to reallocate the money. It would require the signature of the liaison of the organization in addition to the finance board chair. So I feel like we're kind of jumping the gun here by having the board reallocate the money for something that, although it is an unfortunate mistake, it's still something that I feel has to have level playing ground across all organizations, since we did set a precedent that we were only funding the common vision to a maximum of $150.
Well, that is the precedent that was not followed here in making these extraordinary circumstances, and I think that we should, I'm arguing in favor of moving the $100 to contracts because we did mess up. If it was a regular reallocation, I would agree with you, but in this line item, it was over allocated, and to bring it in line with precedent, I think that we should do this.
I mean, in my opinion, I found another club where this was an unfortunate error. I mean, apparently it was made multiple times, and apparently there have been other organizations for this common vision fee error, and unfortunately, this was the first meeting of the semester for So other clubs who cuts were made for the same exact error won't get the opportunity to rebut this because of the fact that the cuts were made prior to any finance board meetings. So I feel although it is unfortunate and very upsetting, I do feel it's something we have to do just since we do have the responsibility to be fair to all organizations and clubs, regardless of whether or not we make mistakes, because of the fact that if we started something like this, we would have to go and try to make it fair for everyone else by trying to do the same things for everyone else. So,
Dave, you have any point to add?
Yeah, we're just also saying that we'd also be, if we're keeping this money and reallocating it, kind of going off what Michael said, we're also putting in a new category, like something that wasn't submitted prior to the board looking at it. So I think that might also be an issue in the future because we're going to be saying that now you can, like, in this instance, you're adding new things that the board previously had not seen when the budget was submitted and requested. So obviously I do understand that the phrases, not misunderstanding, but obviously there was some like confusion around treasure training, and I just know from last year, like Carly and I have been doing that was kind of rushed because budgets did need to be submitted by a certain date, but I do think that just bringing, like, being able to add money to something that wasn't previously requested might also open up some new things that works to bring up.
I would argue that point moves because in this budgetary system, none of the items are seen. We are just allocating our lines for clubs.
Yeah, I know,
so
but they.
the documentation is necessary.
Yeah, I know, but they're also like, if they would to want like a contract decoration done where they would have previously requested like money for it, not just like adding money.
I think the other thing would be like if they hadn't requested food and now suddenly like, well, we have this extra $150 or $100, let's just buy food now.
I'm not
It's
saying
kind of like since
yeah.
we're, even though we're not going into new items, like they could theoretically use that to skirt like our established precedents on how much we can give for food and other stuff. So that's kind of what's being
Yeah, I mean, I haven't really thought of like my opinion on that, but I'm just saying that's like a point to bring up, and that if we are going to start doing that, then I don't know. I feel like it just could lead us into some situations that we don't want to be in. So.
Like the motion for a straw poll, just to see where everybody stands on this.
I'll accept the motion. So straw poll basically is asking kind of where do you stand in terms of how would you vote. It doesn't count as an official vote in the records or minutes. This won't be a binding decision, just so everyone kind of understand where everyone's looking at right now. So 3 options currently on the table. One is to leave the $250 as is. The other is to reallocate $100 of that with contracts. And the third is to simply just cut it to $150. So, yeah.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
First one would be to leave it at $250 as is. Which is the request of was the original request of the club. The second one would be to reallocate the $100 that would come from combination to contracts. And the third one would be to do the blanket cut of $100. So, all in favor of maintaining $250? All in favor of reallocating the $100 to contracts? All in favor of the blanket $100 cut? Alright, thank you. That's where we stand with the current one.
I'll move to end the discussion.
Alright, there's a motion. Previous question.
I'd like to make one more point.
There's an objection.
Can I do that? Or do you want to continue with the motion?
Yeah, no objection.
Alright. So, unfortunately, we're going to move into a vote now. All in favor of moving previous question or ending debate, please raise your hands now. All opposed? Requires a 2/3 vote to end debate, so we're going to keep going. Scott?
Just, my point is, I feel like discussion has been lackluster throughout the night. The finance board specifically does not allow proxy voting because of the deliberate nature of the finance board. I feel like members haven't been really contributing to discussion as much as they can, and I find that disappointing.
Are there any other points of discussions?
I guess I kind of would second that. I know, like, me and Scott have previously served on the finance board, and obviously are like in leadership roles or whatever. But I feel like for most of like discussion and debate, it should include a lot. Like, from actual finance board elected to finance board, because although we do sit on it, I feel like most likely we shouldn't be doing the most talking in terms of
of my point of us trying to come to a consensus, or at least that's what it was last year. But if you guys are just silent, like, we can't do that because I don't know what you think, and like I'm trying to argue a point and I get nothing done. So.
Does anyone else have anything they want to say this time?
I mean, I think, like, I can see why you're making the argument this would be a special, like, extraordinary circumstance, being that we did approve this budget, and it's frustrating, and that's why, like, we do empathize with kleptomaniacs for the struggle that they're going through, especially with the contracts and everything. But I think that it does set a, like, if even if it's not an official, like, precedent moving forward, what Zane was saying about how, like, it does open the door to a lot more gray area, because, like, we are literally deciding, like, we're reallocating money that wasn't even requested in the first place. And yes, the forms were difficult, and that's on us, and which is why we're glad that we're having new forms. But the forms were, like, the same for every club, and so, like, frustrations with the form, I don't know if that's enough to sort of have all of us reconsider, like, our stance and, like, you know, start like ground up, like that should, like, maybe a conversation that we should have, or like the board last year should have had, just to make sure that, like, no clubs would have this problem. But I also think Michael brought up, like, the interesting point about how reallocation requests, like, only need the signature of the liaison, which I think just emphasizes how it's not supposed to be this very, like, not, that dramatic's not the word that I want to use. Just, like, drawn out ordeal. It's supposed to be very, like, we, like, look at the form, we consider it, we discuss, and we vote like that. But I think the fact that there is so much discussion is because we are uncomfortable setting, like, this precedent tonight. It just doesn't seem like for the first, I can imagine, like, this opening up a lot of doors that we won't know how to deal with.
I would say this precedent is limited because it is only to budgets that have been incorrectly approved by the finance board. We all have a vote total approving this amount, and now we're just taking this money away from this organization that we approved, and this is not us doing our due diligence, and that we should give them the grace of giving them the money for this contract, which they didn't even know how to apply for. Well, not allocating any new money. It stays within the amount that we already allocated them, and it's just letting them use the money for something else that they would have requested if they know.
Yeah.
But all in debate for me. That's the one first one.
I guess stepping away from setting any precedents and whatnot, what if, because we've passed all the budgets, what if we were to leave them all as is, and they're all clerical errors on us as the board for not checking them properly, and I guess making sure that in the future that we triple check, 10 times check, like, every single thing to make sure that this doesn't happen again, and making sure that we're not, I guess, we take the time to check everything and that we won't be as rushed. But right now, this is the error that we made, and while I understand it's important in being impartial, since we've already passed everything, we've already sent the emails informing the clubs of their amounts, it's all, like, it's all on us for that we did that, and it's puts clubs in a very difficult situation if they have been informed that they've received this amount of money and then that it has to be cut.
I agree with Nithya. Like, this is the rollout of our new system. Do we really want to be the finance board that takes away money that we already approved for organizations?
I mean, that's admitting to making mistakes, but it still has to be done. This is deeply unfair to clubs. It's saying that, oh, well, because we made a mistake on yours, you're going to get more money because that's our bad. While clubs that we did make a mistake on got less money, and we're like, oh, sorry, you're correct about it. That is, like, deeply unfair to all these other clubs. So I would disagree with that just leaving it be, that's even worse. Like, part of the job is to make these hard decisions, and we need to make the hard decision. I think we should cut $100 for it.
I mean, I understand a lot of issues like these are, they require a bit more understanding, more empathetic understanding, what else I'm gonna mention, but I think Justin's point is fair as well. It's unfortunate, but once we did decide to limit them at 150 throughout, across the board, despite the fact that it's our error in terms of, the funding that we gave them eventually, I think it's important to stick with those decisions just for the sake of uniformity. So there are some circumstances when issues do become black and white, and I think this is one of those issues, given all the balanced qualitative considerations as well.
Thank you for your input.
I do agree. I do agree with Scott and Matthew. I do understand your point, but at the same time, like, we have to own up to our mistakes. Like, we can't just let things slide and, like, it doesn't make sense. It's like not even asking for lots, just reallocating $100. And I feel like it's the least we can do. Like, even though when we do some critical error and we already, like, made a decision to do 150, it's still, like, got approved. And it's on us because it didn't show.
I don't think we're not owning up to our mistakes by taking away $100.
I mean, I just feel like the least we can do is reallocate that money for contracts, and they didn't even know like, where to put it in the form, and it just doesn't make sense to not know.
Right, but during the retreat, we had special session fellows that we made a mistake on, and they weren't present for that meeting. And so,
Was that not before the budgets were set up?
Yeah, they were before.
That was before we.
And the special session was because the club contacted.
but I'm saying
I mean,
in
the
that
direction
situation,
was asked.
what I'm saying is hypothetically in that situation, there are probably more clubs like that, and for us to be saying this precedent is dangerous. It's more about like owning up to the mistake. I think we're all on the same page. No one's saying anything new, but it's about what to do with that mistake. And we have to make the hard decision. And we can't just say, well, some clubs, because we made this mistake, we're gonna just let it slide. We're letting it slide if we just let them keep the 250.
I think.
Sorry, Mike has his hand up. And at this point, due to the length of this debate discussion, only new points will be allowed at this point. You will only be able to rebut a point if you're specifically asked to mention or comment on said point. But if you introduce something, I hope that it's a new point. Otherwise, we're going to avoid the discussion. Michael.
So I think this is a new point, but it's more of a question for you. Can you go more in depth into the secondary ad hoc system and how it could be used to possibly recoup any, I know you had mentioned it, how it could be possibly used to recoup this money he's looking to pay the photographers for?
Yeah, so the Sahas system is mainly used to kind of, the half of it is reserved for merchandise and marketing, or merchandise, so like the t-shirt funds, and then the other half is kind of available for use in terms of how the board sees fit. Most times it's going to be mainly for things that new clubs and organizations that weren't able to submit a budget on time can use the funds here, and then say you're at a competition, you qualify for a national competition that you weren't able to account for within your budget, you would use Sahas to get that. But Scott can also speak more on this as well.
New clubs, unforeseen expenses. Marketing merchandise fund. But that's, and merchandise and marketing is half of the fund. So it's basically exclusively for new clubs, or if you get like nationals or something. You can petition for anything if you want to, but it will probably not get it.
And who oversees this secondary ad hoc system?
Like you petition the liaison and the finance board chair, and then they bring it.
Yeah, so they submit those files. The chair, Marshall, will look over that and then bring it from the board. The board will vote on the issue. So no funds get allocated through Sahas without the board's vote.
Because I would argue that the situation here would be, in my opinion, since I would consider this to be an unforeseen expense due to the fact that this was an expense that last year's Kleptomaniacs Club racked up. This could be seen as an unforeseen expense and I guess paid out accordingly, even though the fact is that I mean, my point for the situation is, we're taking $100 from the marketing, common vision fund to go and give to, I guess, contracts which were not a foreseen expense, but since he's arguing now that there was an unforeseen expense that they may have to pay out of their carry over for the photographer, we could just look at it, or the board can look at it again and just see if they could charge it as a secondary ad hoc thing. I think that would be a much better way to try to recoup the money lost than trying to reallocate and unfairly go and distribute money. It's like all the other clubs in the process. That's just my 2 cents on it. So.
Does anyone have any other comments?
To rebut that, I don't think it's unfairly reallocating money. I think it's more setting the precedent that the finance board won't come and take the money that they gave you already.
I would argue that we're not coming and taking money that was technically never supposed to be allocated.
But it was.
I understand that.
It has, I have your vote to prove it.
No, I mean, was I even there for kleptomaniacs? I mean, I missed it.
We approved all of them at the same time.
He was not.
Not
Oh,
exactly.
Wasn't there.
I have the vote of the majority. of the
But I
finance.
mean, to be fair, I'm not trying to take up the finance board because I believe we have screwed up in just such a proportion, like epic proportions. But we've made a lot of mistakes, although we can't go, I can't apologize enough for all the mistakes we've made. I mean, I really do feel sorry for you. The problem is that if we were to go and pay out on all the mistakes we've made, we would be cutting significantly into the money we have for next semester. And then we wouldn't have enough money to go and put equally distributed like we did for this semester. So I would argue that by making this cut, we don't have to worry about clubs coming back to us asking for reallocation for mistakes we've made and then keep cutting into money for spring semester. We would.
But this is already money we spent. We know how much over we are.
Right, but the thing, we know how much money over we are, but then, that's true, I guess that's a good point. Okay, that's good. I'll do that too. But still, I would argue, though, just for in fairness, we need consistency. I mean, without consistency, we can't argue why we've made any decision. And if we can't stay consistent, then what do we have as a board? We would be just a board of people who make exceptions when we feel like it. So, I mean, that's a big part of my argument too. So, there you go.
Alright, Ilsa, then Scott, then Zane, and then I'm gonna move to Ed.
Well, that's not.
Ilsa.
This is just real quick, but like, because I heard at one point someone was like, it's just $100 that we're reallocating, and that because like we should like own up to our mistakes or whatnot. So my question would be like, does that mean that, for example, like with the other club where like we were supposed to, I know it was like we gave $90, but we were supposed to give $900. If, for example, we had an oversight, we find out that we gave like $900 to a club that was supposed to get $90. With that sort of mindset, it would be, well, it was our clerical error on our part, so we should just have them have like $9 or like whatever amount of money. Like, but I feel like as a board, we would be like, no, we need to, like, that money wasn't theirs, even though like that was another, like, that was a mistake on our part. We just like added a zero when it wasn't supposed to be. I feel like we would come to the consensus that we should take away that money because it was a mistake, and that as soon as we recognized that mistake, we were reminded that we need to be fair, and we took away the money. So So I feel like that sort of argument where it's like it's our mistake, so and it's just like $100, that works for this club, but again, like we have to start thinking about what it would mean for other clubs too.
Just gonna point for point of clarification, it wasn't that we were supposed to get 90, they got 900,
Yeah.
it's the other way around.
Yeah, but I'm saying like that's why I was like, hypothetically, because that would be such a large amount of money that they don't, it's not their money.
No, get your points. Scott?
If somebody got that much extra money, I don't think they would come to the finance board to ask to get that reallocated. But secondly, I think this is in line with precedent, since this was at the SGA retreat, but we did contact a club to reach out to them and get their input on funding that, was it over allocated for, what was it, theater?
This was theater in terms of, with their contracts, because we couldn't fund their contracts based on their attendance numbers. So we confirmed based on attendance, which we count.
So we reached out to the club and or changed what would have been directly on the form by reaching out to the club, and I feel like this is a situation in line with that. But I move to end debate.
Alright, there's a motion for previous question.
Second.
There's a second. All in favor, please raise your hands now.
Just wanna put it back or something.
Note that Justin and Elise are not here, but there's still enough members for quorum, and if all we vote yes, at least one to be. So, all in favor, please raise your hands now.
To end debate.
Yeah, to end debate. All opposed? Motion carries. We're gonna wait till our two representatives return to move into a vote.
I further motion to allow the club representative to respond to the debate that was just happened.
I'll allow the motion. You may proceed.
So I'll start off by saying that the fallacy that you're trying to use in saying that it would be more responsible to not allocate that, go over $100. We requested $250 because that's what we thought we needed. And we were never told that $150 was going to be the maximum amount to be allocated to any club. When were you planning on telling that to anything? When were you telling the maximum amount for any category to any club?
If I may respond to that.
Mm-hmm.
So these are decisions that the board made in order to ensure that we could fund organizations at the levels that they were requesting. Unfortunately, the board was not able to fund everyone fully as much as we would have liked to. We received approximately $310,000 worth of requests for a pot of which we could only allocate $117,000. So a lot of cuts had to be across the board, a lot of events had to get slashed. And these decisions are not hard-pressing decisions of the finance board. For example, if more funding were to be given next year or the amount of allocations or requests went down, we would be happy to fund common vision at $250 or what was requested. The only hard set precedence would be that for room rental fees is $25 for either Skylight or for the Recital Hall. There are no room rental fees on campus, and the maximal fund for an on-campus event is $33 per head, and the maximal fund for food is $12 per the Maryland State Lunch Allowance. Those are the only hard set precedents. The $150 precedent that was set by the board this time was a precedent that would apply to the budgetary processes that we were going through. So we made agreements that in order to make sure no club was unfairly spited and no one got any, like we wouldn't have to cut a specific event from a club just to make it work. We decided to make across the board cuts to every club to ensure that no singular club would be singled out, if that makes sense.
But that singles out clubs, you realize. The clubs that want more advertising or think that their events, our events do live and die on our advertising, that singles out those clubs.
Yes, I understand that. That was a very long debate that we had. I think it lasted for about 3 hours in our organization in terms of what to do, because we don't like cutting money.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fair. Like, no matter what you've heard from the board here today, we wanted to go in and fund as much as that we could. But the fact of the matter is that we only have so much money to allocate.
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes to this, it was either making cuts to common vision materials or cuts to ECS fees, which would prevent the event from happening in the first place. So I understand that clubs live and die by this, but that was the rationale that was used. Ideally, the board will soon be setting out, Verinda, our president, is currently working on it in conjunction with other members of finance leadership to send out what the precedents that we used for, how much was requested, how much we were allowed to allocate, and make that information public. And during the spring semester, come that time when we have budgetary meetings during our finance meetings, those will be open to the public for people to come in, to hear what the board's rationale is, to hear them debate and talk about stuff. And when your club comes up, you will again be able to talk about and argue on behalf of your organization. The issue this time is just that all the meetings were still open, they just happened over the summer because we had to get funds out.
Mm-hmm.
And then you had other points.
So first of all, I guess I'll say that please don't hold events over the summer when students might not be able to attend from their organizations. Again, that's just a small request, but I guess I'll end up with my argument saying that if you end up cutting that 100 and I have to request the 500 for new, we can tank the 500 from last semester, but 500 for this upcoming semester for photography and videography, plus the extra 100 for what would be the missing common division. That would be totaling 600. The to another, the SAHAS form, which isn't guaranteed. I just say that trying to get it through that SAHAS form and trying to push it off to someone else's problem isn't very responsible.
What to say, Scott, maybe you have something you want to say.
The event being, or the funding process being done over the summer was done in somewhat of a rushed way because of the way the timeline works. This would only happen this time because it is the first year where it's being implemented.
And I appreciate that you're trying to make it more streamlined, and again, I can't reiterate that enough because it's
Yeah.
it
Summer
needs
meetings
that
won't
help.
be happening anymore, but
Mhm.
the option was either summer meetings to get these budgets done, or you guys not hearing about it until the board meets today. And today would be the start of us going through the 350 council process. So. Alright, are there any other, so we moved to discussion, we have a vote on the table. There are currently 3 options on the vote, going by plurality vote, so whichever option gets the most amount of votes among the board members will be the one that we go with, in the exception of a tie, in which case we'll have a run. Scott?
I would motion to overrule the chair and vote on the amendment first and then on the overall budget.
He needs to-
So first, if we want to reallocate the money and then on the overall.
No, first
No.
to cut,
Oh, first the cut.
and then second to
It's the-
either give that $100 to
I
contracts
feel
or
like-
not.
One vote should be done at once.
For you, but you do the cut first.
Yeah, so we'll do the first one as to whether or not we want to keep the 250 or remove 100 to bring it down to 150. After that, depending on the outcome of that, I'll move into a secondary vote as to what to do with that 100 that is going to cut. So, 2 options on the table. Again, one, maintaining the 250. The second option would be cutting 100, bring it down to 150. All in favor of 250, please raise your hands now. All opposed? All right. Motion, I guess, fails in this situation. Or no motion carries. So there will be a $100 cut. The second question on the table will be for that $100. The 2 options are to reallocate that to contracts or to simply remove it altogether. So all in favor of reallocating that $100 to contracts, please raise your hand now. All opposed? Motion carries, and we will be cutting the $100 entirely. Vote in that situation will be 5-3-1-0.
Can you say that again?
5-3-1-0.
Wait,
I'm the exception. I can't vote because it affects the outcome. It's a 5-3 vote. Alright. So. That's the budget.
No, thank you.
Yes, I'm the SGA treasurer. Oh, a bunch of David Roy. For treasurer.
And feel free to contact us. We'll be happy to, we can do help on this side. I do not seem to have a new situation, but,
Here, I can write it down for you.
let's get this. Alright.
Scott, 23rd.
Sorry this is taking so long, guys, but moving on to the second, for budget cuts would be Caribbean Student Council. We already fixed the issue on their food funding, but then the other issue came up of their accommodation being funded at 200 and not the 150 cut again. So, I'd like to move on the table to amend the Caribbean Student Council's budget to strike 200 from accommodation and replace it with 150. Alright, so is there a motion for debate or no?
Motion to table all legislation until the clubs are notified that they're on the docket.
There's a motion to table until clubs are notified that they will be talked about on the finance board docket. Is there a second? Seconded. All in favor, please raise your hands now. All opposed? 5-3, the motion carries. We will table this.
And the next one, right?
Yep. There's the fourth one is other clubs as being found, so if any other errors were found. The final one, this is a different circumstance, I would like to bring it forth, but you can again motion to table it until the club is present. I'd like to bring forward the Russian club. We funded them, I think it was $250,000 for 2 years. So but then we cut them again down to $150, bringing their total to $4,850. Since there's no real justification for that other $100, that's kind of what we were talking about before in terms of the reallocation. But in this situation, I don't have an explanation for them as to why they didn't get funded the amount that they should have, which is $4,950. So that's the motion that I'd like to bring to you in terms of reallocating the $100 into the food and drink section. That's not ECS fees, so we've handled all of that, but in the parts that they requested.
What's the maximum food and drink based on the $1?
Yeah, so 150 times 12.
You didn't go by 12 though.
No, we did not. 150 by 10, so 1,500 would be the max. So this would be bringing it to 1,375, but that would still be within the range of what they can request.
What was the error we made in this budget?
Sorry?
What was the error we made in this budget? We just
So when we dropped their common vision down from 250 to 150, brought their total down to 4,850. But the only reason why they were capped at 4,950 was because of our $32 per head. So because we made a cut without compensating for the $30 per head, there's not as much justification in terms of why they shouldn't get the full amount that they can get. If that makes sense. But really, that's the issue that was brought up. You guys can, of course, just vote to keep the budget as is. Would you guys like to open discussion or move straight to a vote?
I'll move to open to discussion.
There's a motion to open discussion.
Second.
Seconded. All in favor? All opposed? 8-0, the motion carries.
I feel like this is fairly simple. We should just give them, once the precedent is, whatever funded them.
Yeah, I think that's,
Yeah, that's fine.
pretty sure.
How many votes is that?
Oh, please.
I move to approve it with general consent.
There's a motion on the floor to end debate then.
Sorry.
All right, all in favor of moving previous question, please raise your hands now. All opposed? 8-0, the motion carries. Is there a
I
motion?
move to approve the general consent.
There's a motion to approve the general consent of adding $100 to the food and drink section.
Second.
There's a second. All in favor, please raise your hands now. All opposed? Motion carries. I'll probably do
Am I opening close the vote?
So other clubs as requested, can we add computer science education?
computer science education.
Is there an amendment to the agenda?
Oh, there's a section there for other clubs as requested.
Or I guess when you're sending out, you said, yeah. I guess this is the same, it's just the same,
For common data?
yeah.
See, I swear that I precedent.
Yeah, I would also,
This is what I said.
What do you mean?
I'd also like to add a club to those scheduled real talk club. We also did the same thing for competition.
Yeah, I honestly think we just need to go through it. Because it definitely was 150. That's what we agreed on.
Yeah. This one's too big, I'm gonna explain to every club that comes in.
I'll make sure. I'll take it. All right, so, yes,
Can we also bring up, table tennis club?
table tennis. T is after the pass. All right. Any other clubs you want to add on right now? All right, so.
Actually, yeah, I'm sorry. Last one, just Anime Society.
It's UMBC and Society Civil War.
Wait. All right, so these are the clubs for on the table, more we add in a moment, but first we'll bring the docket. So there's a motion on the floor to amend the budget for Computer Science Education Club. Currently, seeing as they got $250 in common vision materials, this would bring
I just got the email like yesterday, but Table Tennis Club wanted, I think, $280 because it was $100 for the room rental and then for 2 hours and another $50, but they only got $80 for food, and I guess they're really upset because in order to function as a club, they need the money for equipment, rental materials, for the ping pong balls, and yeah, like 50 cents of ball packs for $100. So they're basically saying like if they don't have that, they can't really do the club, and they can't really bring in more people. But
Scott and Justin.
Since I responded to this email over the weekend, the room rental fee is free and it's the game room. So that's incorrect. You should notify them that the game room is free and they do not need to request ECS for that. You or Mohammed, I know the liaison system is doubled up on table tennis. But we also have a precedent regarding rental materials, I believe.
This is the rentals, this would be the actual.
Yeah, but with not funding WMBC at all, I feel like this would actually be allocating a lot more money than we meant to. And contrary to the point that I was making earlier, where we already gave the money for this, this would be reconsidering a club who did not get money to give the money.
Justin.
Okay, so I guess I just want to, this is an event that they're having in the game room, and they need $200 for equipment.
no, it's not an event. It's for them for the whole semester.
Okay.
So the room rental is free. Also, the game room provides ping pong balls. This was something they wanted for themselves to keep to go home because they asked me specifically for funds for this, like out of campus life last semester.
That's what I was thinking, because I want to know where they got $200 for the ping pong balls. So,
I think they wanted paddles too, but I'm not 100% on that one.
okay.
Basically, this is asking $200 for general body needs, I would say.
So the
Hold on,
already provides ping pong balls? Yeah. The game room provides paddles and ping pong balls because they have those foam tables in there.
I believe in their executive summary stated that it would be quote unquote a hassle to have members drop off their ID cards, check out materials every time. It would increase risk of losing ID cards. But Zay
So yeah, so this just brings up another good point, that I was probably gonna bring up like whatever, so, and I know Scott can mention it with WMBC, so, the equipment policy that the finance board has followed, like in the past, we actually had a meeting this past spring, yeah, it was myself, Candace, the old treasurer, Carly, David, who's an SABSC, and Dusty, who's also an SABSC, and I think some people from theater groups were also there, and we were just talking about it, and I don't know if we expressed the equipment policy when deciding like on equipment, like the ping pong balls, or we probably brought it up with WNBC, but the equipment policy from like SABSC, like Dusty and David, was basically like the finance board has been using it very like, not incorrectly, but very like strict and with a lot of restraint. So like in the past we've never funded like costumes or like other like quote unquote equipment that clubs like could use in store. And they said basically only like electronics and like other like big, like basically electronics that the state would want to know where they're at and what they're being used for. Because like in general they don't care like a costume. Like if there was an audit, they're gonna be like, okay, they bought a costume for like a play, like cool. But not like 6 flat screen TVs, like, you know, where do they go? I was definitely gonna take that up again in terms of just like, I guess rewriting the policy or making sure that it's clear on equipment, but I just wanted to put that out there in terms of like future, that like the policy is probably like, if working with that group again just to rewrite it is going to be a lot less lenient, so like things like ping pong balls and paddles are going to be classified as quote unquote equipment because the state doesn't really care that you buy ping pong balls or something like that. So just putting that out there for the future.
Yeah, point. That's Scott.
Oh no, I had a question. It was already answered.
All right, Scott.
I believe even with Zane's point, finance board is still bound by equipment committee.
committee, who consists of Liam, Zane, myself, and Candace,
That's correct.
Simon too, isn't it?
and Simon.
You're bound by the vote of
Yeah, so we get to decide, equipment committee gets to decide what is equipment, but moreover, I feel like a bunch of the items that can be considered expendable that we should invest into putting those into source to be rented out rather than buying them every year and expending funds that I don't think we really need to.
Elise, do you have any further questions before regarding game terms?
No. I just have to respond to their email. Cause they just send me the same thing right now. So.
Alright. So those are the, next would be Anime Society.
So for this one, I just had a question. When I was going through their budget, there was, I think their first event, they didn't get funded for audiovisual, which I thought was just the usual ECSB that we usually funded. So I didn't know if that was a clerical error on our part or was there specific reasoning behind it.
So these are funding for their general body meetings, and the finance board set a current precedent that we're not funding general body meetings unless they're, although listed as general body, typically 4 members of the club and organization don't really benefit everyone else. So that's why their ECSBs were not covering that. Alright, so I have Real Talk, CS Education, and Caribbean Student Council to discuss in the docket for next week. Are there any other clubs and organizations you want to let me know now or not? Alright, hearing nothing else. Attendance policy. I promise we'll make this quick. Attendance policy, so if you have to be absent, notices should be emailed to share before 5 p.m. the day before the excused absence. So in our situation, if you have to be excused for a Tuesday meeting, I need an email stating why by 5 p.m. on Monday. And an excused absence constitutes live but not limited to non-recurring academic programs. So if you have like a chem test that happens, because I know those are always in weird times and places, that would be falling under that. Or if you have like a mock trial thing or a report event that's off campus that you have to go to, that would fall under this. And of course, religious and spiritual holidays and stuff. Notices of absences for the following issues may be sent on the same day. So if you suddenly get sick, that's an exception. You can let me know during the day of, saying like, hey, it's Tuesday morning, really sick with something, I can't make it. That's okay. And then medical or family emergency. Again, the earlier is preferable. But if you don't let me know before 5 o'clock on the day of the meeting, it will most likely be counted as an unexcused absence until you can provide documentation stating otherwise. All of you guys are here, so none of you guys are getting fired already because the first meeting of the finance board was mandatory. But if you have 2 unexcused absences from finance board, you will be immediately removed from your position. So if you miss 2 meetings without telling us why or providing excuses that aren't up to par with the excused absence policy, you will be removed from your position and there will be an in-house election to replace you. That's pretty much it on the attendance policy. Just make sure you're here. Additional work and rules outside will be discussed further. Office hours. So since you guys are now mostly liaisons and have clubs that wish to speak to you, and clubs are going to be coming in general, we're going to be instituting office hours with the finance board. This system will be elaborated a lot more on next week in terms of with the calendar set up, but I'd like you to start looking through your schedules and identifying 2 hours a week in which you are available. Office hours are pretty simple. You sit in the SGA office, you can do homework, you can play video games, you can mess with the puzzle around there too. But if a club, you just have to have time in the office, that way clubs can come in and ask you questions during that time frame. So your office hours will be posted on a calendar that will be available on the UMBC website. Be able to basically say, all right, there's a finance board representative in the office right now, I can go in and talk to them. On top of that, we will also be requested to have at least 2 to 3 hours of appointment schedules time. This would be time you put in a group calendar for appointments that people can sign up to meet with you. In those situations, you don't have to be at the office for that, but there should at least be time in your schedule for each week that clubs can sign up for a little 30-minute slot to kind of meet with you and talk about their club or ask about their club. So we're going to show you how to do that real quick, since I'd like you guys to start doing that as soon as you can. Oh god, I gotta get rid of the times.
Oh my god.
Candace Martinez Jones has a question.
Yes.
I would recommend setting a deadline as to when you want members to have their appointments set up on the calendar.
Yes, so I'll be showing you guys a tutorial of how to do that now, and then by next far as appointments, you just have to find times in your schedule where you're free, select down, drag an event, and you're gonna switch over from event to appointment slots. And from here you can add in a time, so if you wanna meet with your boy, we'll set that time over, and once you save, they'll be listed as appointment slots, and then you can theoretically, once your calendar is available to share, someone could sign up for those. The duration for these are 30 minutes, so slots of duration would be 30 minutes. I recommend that's a decent time for you. If you want to drop down to 15, you can do that as well to increase that, but you'll probably be having around 3 hours a week, 2 to 3 hours a week of just appointment times. And again, during this time, you don't have to be in the office meeting with them. It's just times to sign up. So pick times that you're free. You probably won't be meeting with clubs during most of that time, but just that the options available for them as well. All right, are there any questions about that? So yeah, your assignment is to start looking through your calendar for 2 hours free for office hours. They can be non-consecutive, but at least have an hour block at a time. And during the next meeting, there will be time for us to finalize all that stuff. Announcements. Does anyone have any announcements they'd like to make? Scott.
Please go to, what is it called? The SGA website?
SGA.UMBC.edu.
If you can go there. Please go to funding.
She's not here, bro.
This is the site that
Oh, wait, hold on.
Candace and I work together to create. That is our SurveyMonkey link.
Refresh.
This is the updated website.
I just updated it. Sorry.
Up top is SurveyMonkey, or weird.
Okay.
SurveyMonkey for all clubs to apply to. This is for Sahas and for budgets. Candace has a detailed walkthrough. Please
Click
go
on it,
through
it's
that
pretty.
in your own time.
Yeah.
I can't believe I'm missing that.
You're good.
Certainly, you didn't mispronounce
I'm
it.
sorry.
You just had different.
My treasure training presentation, and then the top one under SABSE documents are all the documents required for a variety of events. If you can open that one.
Which one?
That one. So if somebody comes to you and it's like, I don't know how to talk to David Royer, you're like, me too, but I have this list.
Scott's got jokes. Not pretty too.
Remember, we're live, brother.
He knows that's why he's got the jokes.
There's your list.
So a lot of SABSC stuff is through their appointments page. Liam, I think just showed you how to do
Which
that.
is the link down there.
Mhm.
Yeah. Can you click on their appointments page? So if you click on list of required documents to bring to
Yeah.
SABSC,
So
it's going to be the last link on the page.
please make sure that you're paying attention, since this is how you're going to help the clubs that you're liaisons for.
So they have an appointments page, which when you set up appointment times on your calendar, you can also have a link like this,
So it'll say.
but not as many appointments.
Yeah, because they're ridiculous.
Yeah.
They have cart requests, cash box requests, purchasing appointments, and I think that's basically
New
everything.
hire ones.
New hires
New
are
hires.
if you're working for student affairs. Not be applied, but yeah. So this place right here is where you will be pointing your liaisons to, and also walking them through the processes. You should be familiar with all the content on the UMBC SGA funding page. So that's homework for you. Also, if you go to my UMBC groups, you will be a member of
Only if
student
they
board.
accepted it.
Oh.
Everyone should have gotten an email.
If you did what Courtney
None of the above.
Tori told you to do, you should be a
No, not
member
this
of this group,
This one or a different
No,
one?
treasurer,
You have-
treasurer.
Treasurers.
student organization treasurers.
It's private, so you
Mhm.
can.
This is where all the treasurers are. This is where I will be communicating all communications for treasurers of all student organizations. And this is, I think, where the finance board probably should too.
Did everyone
Um,
get that email?
Did treasurers get that email too?
So the treasurers are automatically put in it, because my UBC pulls anyone listed as a treasurer into the group automatically, but since none of you are listed as, well, maybe some, no, never mind. If you weren't put in it. So I put everyone's email in it, so it might have been easy to just ignore because it just came from my UMBC. So if you did not get it, send me an email, Teasley, THEASLEY
What happens if a club doesn't have a treasurer?
They don't get to be in that.
But like,
And they can't request from the
Then they
funding.
can't
they need to have a treasurer to be recognized.
Yeah,
So
could
like,
be a club, they have to.
You need treasurer,
like my
yeah, you
two
need
of
5
my
members.
clubs that I'm liaisons for, like, so when I'm like sending out emails, should I like email their president? Should I not include them in my list and email them separately and be like, you need to?
If
I
you,
would-
if you,
So-
go ahead.
So anyone that doesn't, we've already been in contact with.
Okay.
Are you,
I think it's
what if they
the
have some-
accounting club and the
Mhm.
Hillel student organization.
Yeah, so Hillel had someone step down over the summer. So they've all been contacted and they all know. Accounting club, I can't remember if they
It would,
requested
I mean,
or
I don't
not,
think
but
it would be a bad practice that if you get wind that an org's treasurer is, that you forward that to
Yeah.
these ladies, so that it's just like, it sort of closes the loop on it, because they may already know, or they may not. So if you
Mhm.
get wind of that, I would recommend forwarding that to the coordinator.
Yeah, those two, that spreadsheet we made, so we are aware of the groups that don't have them and they've been contacted, and they're either in limbo or they're working on it. So a lot of them didn't wanna hold an election over the summer online. So like Hillel, they had someone step down, they didn't wanna do that over the summer, they wanted to do it in person,
Okay.
so they're supposed to be having one, and then we're gonna check in on that.
So I
But
should just leave it be for now, like let them figure it out for a little bit.
Yeah.
Contact, okay.
yeah, and then that spreadsheet will not be getting updated, just so everybody knows. So like everyone needs to be updating, not of you all the orgs will be updating who their officers are in 25 Live. No, in my UMBC. So that spreadsheet was just our initial upload into my UMBC. So we can run reports on who all the treasurers are for everyone. That's not an issue at all. But I wouldn't, after this semester, rely on that spreadsheet because we're not going to be updating it. Does that make sense? Also, just for clarification, orgs don't have to have a secretary. They just have to have president, VP, and treasurer.
Okay. So I would like to ask everybody to attend the treasurer training. I have a few up here, and it's important that we're all on the same page on this information. Orgs have to attend treasurer training before they can even view the programs for the SurveyMonkey. So if they don't have programs, they haven't attended treasurer training, and they cannot request from the finance board. Basically, make sure that they go there first, and then before they ask you questions, because if they didn't attend treasurer training, they shouldn't be trying to learn from you. They should be trying to learn from you.
Alright. Are there any other announcements?
Involvement Fest is canceled tomorrow, in case y'all didn't know. This Monday. Volunteer if you can.
It's Monday now?
Yep.
It's gonna be really helpful.
Yep. It's gonna be brutal tomorrow, heat wise. High of 92, low of 63. Someone explain that.
When was the last time?
That's
that
like-
that
that's
all
like-
the tests was outside?
Huh?
When was the last time?
Before I was here.
Yeah, I was gonna say every time, like for all 3 years now it's been canceled.
Yeah.
It was
I
rained
should make a
twice.
second
We
day.
like the experience involved with
Get involved.
Alright. Are there any other announcements people wanna make?
Leading Works is on Saturday, in the UC Ballroom from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Each student organization on campus is required to send at least one representative unless they're a fraternity or sorority or a club sport. So if you're part of an org or know anyone who is,
communicating
needs
this to
one
students for like
person
the
to show
past
up.
year, and we've sent like multiple emails out, like, and we've had meetings with each student board, so like it shouldn't come as like a shocker to anyone, and if it is, then like we'd be
They were in
happy to
transition though.
we'd be happy to chat with them.
I would put out like an important notification or something, just so they know that they get the ban hammer.
Yeah, I already have sent that, and yeah, I'm not gonna make any special accommodations at this point, because we're almost at capacity.
Where is it?
It's in the AC ballroom. Yeah, thank you for asking.
Let's go student, campus life advisors.
Alright, so that's pretty much it. Sometime within the next, or actually probably by the end of tonight, I'll create a shared Google Calendar for office hours, so you can start putting your projected ones on there, and we'll discuss more about it during the meeting next week. Next week, considering the discussion and debate that we had today, I estimate next week will probably also be looking on the same, since we'll have clubs coming in. Each club and organization will be given approximately 30 minutes for a time of discussion, so just be prepared for that. You'll have your agenda for that meeting by Sunday at 5 p.m., so make sure that you guys are for that ahead of time. If you have any clubs you'd like to add to the agenda, please let myself or Justin know before 5 p.m. on Saturday. That way we can adjust the agendas accordingly.
Wait, you're not sending out the agenda until. So how would you know if you want to? Or you said add something?
Yeah, if you just
Oh,
you want to have
add
brought
on.
up something you want to add, put it there. And then of course agendas can always be amended for you. All right, are there any final announcements?
At the treasurer trainings, I've been saying that you should be expected, or you should expect to be contacted by your liaison soon. What's the timeline on that? Because that needs to be done, especially since we just finished our first meeting.
So I sent out invitations to everyone for an email session with Candace for Thursday, Friday, and Monday. And at the session, it will basically help you learn how to like send out an email. Like you'll be sending out your email to your clubs at that time, not just like practice.
Unless you've already sent them out.
Yes.
Yeah. I would try to get them done this week before Friday and 5.
So if you want to come on Thursday or Friday, I can show you how to mail merch. What's up?
Oh, it's amazing.
And then you can see who opened it and who clicks.
That's scary.
I didn't know that.
How many orgs do you have? Each?
About 15.
50?
Trust me, it's a beautiful thing. All right, so with no further announcements, I'm going to adjourn the meeting. I recognize that Mohammed is present, Elise is present, Michael is present, Justin is present, Ilsa is present, Scott is present, Zane is present, Nick is present, and I am present along with 3 ex officio members. Our meeting is adjourned. So we're going to move into pass the gavel.
Oh, wait.
Oh yeah.